be pissed. I'm sure he was pissed. He should be pissed.
What's up guys and welcome. You are watching Fazi Fitness. So guys, channel membership is now live. Link is in the description and the first comment. Do check it out. That would really help support the channel. While 99% of the bodybuilding community that was busy watching the first ever Pittsburgh Pro and the guest posing, the former 2 times Olympia champion Big Ramy, he was spotted conducting a seminar, and in just a few sentences, he described what it's like to be the best in the world and what it takes. So as Jay Cutler always said, that to be the best in the world, you have to be selfish and only focus on that one goal.
You don't love her, but you have to be selfish a little bit when you have this sport. When you are in this sport, you have to be selfish. You have to love yourself. And that means, maybe I lost some from lifestyle.
So Big Ramy spent the most part of his life trying to be the biggest and the best in the world. And he will always go down as 2 times Olympia champion. One of the biggest Olympia champions we have ever seen. So is it safe to say that his competing days, they are behind him? Although the man still looks pretty huge. And the training videos that Big Ramy posted today, he's still pushing some serious amounts of weight in the gym. And from the looks of it, Ramy is still close to 300 pounds. But he definitely must be running a lot less gear now. Because at this point, winning another Olympia title, that isn't the goal. So he has now been away from the stage for more than 2 years. And it's kind of doubtful that he still has got that same mentality to go all out in terms of all the extreme things that you need to do in order to be the best in the world. Now this guy is immensely loved everywhere, especially in the Middle East. And Ramy can't just make great living, but just making all these appearances. Now if Big Ramy continued to compete after the Arnold Ohio back in 2023, he probably still would have been in the game. I mean, just look at William Bonac. He's older than Big Ramy, and the man is still improving. So great to see Big Ramy enjoying his life. And he gave us all some great moments on the stage. And the man is arguably one of the most freaky guys to ever win the Olympia. Next up, we have the physique update from Brett Wilkin, who also guest posted on the same weekend as the Pittsburgh in Sweden. Now we do not know what Brett has been doing lately but this off-season and the condition that he's holding on to right now with that kind of weight. For those of you guys who do not know, he is in the high 280s right now. That is simply extraordinary. So Brett can diet for another 4 weeks and he can be ready to step on the stage. That is how impressive the man is looking right now. So this is his first off-season with Stefan as his coach. And it seems like this is going perfectly well for both these guys. Now Brett was the first ever athlete to qualify for the Olympia last year, and that was by winning the Legion Sports, the first Olympia qualifier for this year. That show was scheduled 2 weeks prior to the Olympia last year, so technically this guy had more time than every other Olympia competitor to make some necessary improvements and have a proper off-season. And safe to say that the improvements which are being made, they are definitely visible on his physique right now. Just looking at his current condition, none of us would be even a little bit surprised if Brett jumps into an earlier show to make some good money. And we have seen it time and time again, that not all the guys, when they take the full off season to grow, to get bigger, that doesn't always translate on the stage. I know this is kind of off topic, but how confident would Brett be prepping for his first ever show with Stefan after watching Martin miss his peak, and that too by a mile? So how did you guys rate this physique and the condition of Brett Wilkin in the off-season? In my opinion, pretty insane. So Ramy Krizo was one of the most exciting guys to watch during this year's Pittsburgh Pro Prep, just because he has that Mr. Olympia caliber look, especially in the gym, while in the tank top, and especially when he hits that most muscular, that is bonkers. Truly the most impressive most muscular right now in the entire Pro League. So Krizo plays top 5, and the man is extremely satisfied with his performance here. Because if you guys remember, he set this goal to make it into that top 6 in his first ever show back since that shoulder injury, and also taking into consideration the fact that this was their first show together, him and George Farah. This was their first prep together, and safe to say that they both delivered. Now that being said, at this point it's highly unlikely that Ramy Krizo can ever crack top 6 at the Olympia level. I don't know what the issue is with his waistline his obliques just look so wide that it just simply throws off the entire flow of his physique in the front shots. And by the time he gets to the most muscular, he has already lost so many poses. Plus, his back, that was definitely improved. But his glutes are simply too small. And it's kind of surprising that a guy who has such humongous quads, front to back, he has such tiny glutes. Now, he was in a great condition at this year's Pittsburgh Pro, but this is what Krizo's ceiling looks like at the moment. So Michael Krizo has released an official statement, and the man has confirmed his attendance for the upcoming New York Pro. So with Nick Walker supposedly also doing the New York Pro, this is gonna be a long off season for Krizo. He will have to wait in order to get that Olympia qualification. So majority of the bodybuilding community is still discussing the results of this past Pittsburgh Pro, specifically Nick Walker losing to Derek in one of the closest battle in the entirety of bodybuilding history. So this must have been a very painful loss for the mutant, making such a great comeback, one of the best ever in the bodybuilding history. And the fact is, he was beating Derek during the prejudging, he was leading, and not being able to come out on top. That must have been a very hard pill to swallow. But that being said, him making such a strong comeback, does that mean he can go on and win the Olympia title this year in October? Well, the 6 times Olympia champion Chris Bumstead, he was there in attendance for this year's Pittsburgh Pro, and that is what he predicted, and that is what he felt when Derek was announced the winner of this show.
Like when I was sitting in the crowd, I could literally, like, seeing Nick's face, sitting there, I could feel the energy just filling up with him out of nowhere. And when you lose something like that, there is so much energy that you can put towards good, towards making yourself better, to put.
So the disappointment that Nick felt momentarily, that anger, we all know he's gonna use that as a motivation, as a fuel, and come back even better for the Olympia this year. Now it will be so historic because Nick is planning to step back on the Olympia stage after a gap of 2 years. And there were some people in the industry, like Bob Shikarello, who said that Nick is gonna place 8th at the Olympia this year. So do you guys know who dodged the biggest bullet at this year's Pittsburgh Pro? It was Bob. Because had Nick won, Bob would have had to interview him as the winner. And that could have been the most awkward interaction on the stage, in front of thousands of people, and millions of people watching it online. But the question right now is that, will the FBB consider Nick Walker to be representing the Olympia title? As right now in this era, they are more inclined towards more aesthetic and more streamlined physiques. Well, maybe not. But we will have to wait and see.
Most people will never experience that in their entire life. And while it feels like absolute shit right now while he's in it, it is leading himself up for the greatest, like, progression ever. The greatest comeback, the greatest feelings of positive emotion in the future.
What we're hearing, some people got Nick winning. I don't. I still have Derek a solid 1 across the board.
So not all the experts out there have Nick Walker winning the Pittsburgh Pro. And one of them, who speaks without any filters, that is Shawn Ray. So Shawn was on Larry Pollock's channel discussing the results of this year's Pittsburgh Pro. And he did point out Nick Walker's midsection as one of the biggest reason of his loss to Derek here. Now we know Nick Walker was very composed on the stage at most times, especially when he was hitting those shots. But there were some times when he just totally let go of his stomach, his midsection, compared to Derek, who kept the midsection tight at all times.
Most notably, especially in between poses, Nick, the waist is wide, stomach is smooth, lots of deep breathing, heavy breathing, which detracts from his physique, but he's formidable. I believe he had Martin.
Now that has to be one of the biggest reasons of Nick's loss to Derek, as per Shawn Ray. So this might be the exact same scenario that we saw back in 2018 when Phil Heath lost due to his midsection, when in fact he won most of the mandatory poses against Sean Roden, because Nick Walker was harder all around compared to Derek, except in the glutes area. He was overall bigger than Derek, except I'm gonna say the upper back. So if that's the major reason that Hal Mannion gives us in his detailed breakdown, which we're gonna see in a couple of days, then we are most probably gonna see a much more composed version of Nick on the New York Pro stage, which is happening this coming weekend, and most importantly, at the Olympia stage. So hit the thumbs up button if you liked the video, and smash the subscribe button if you wanna come back for more. Thanks for watching.